things first, it's the DU General, Money B. I'ma put you up on the schedule, 6 to 9, 8 weekdays, not to unsettle you. Let's go. We got a lot to talk about, so much to pedal through. Unapologetically progressive. Tune to KBLA 1580 to get the mess. We're your ancestors' favorite radio station. First black on talk radio, left side of the nation. Me and Dominique the Prima go way back. Tag Smiley making sure the station stays black. Discussing all the issues in our community. We're hosted black and brown and others find unity. So let's talk about it. Maybe we can improve it. Digital underground, always down with the movement. So we tune in. The first things first with the queen of Black Talk Radio, Dominique the Prima. Go sis.
First things first.
KBLA Talk 1580. Good morning and God bless. I'm Dominique DePrima. The show is First Things First, and my first thing every single day, giving thanks, giving praises, asking for blessings from the Most High, asking for the blessings of the ancestors, the elders, you, and let's go. Let's do this. We are so blessed to have this microphone, this platform, this radio station, the only black-owned station west of the Mississippi, so that we can be heard every day, all day, and I invite you to do just that by calling 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. Say his name, George Floyd. Say his name, George Floyd. 3 years ago today, he was murdered by police in Minnesota. That's just one of the things that I invite you to call and speak about, but so many things occurred after that, right? And the journey that we've been on, the journey of marching, of struggling, the journey of freedom, and also the backlash, or white lash, as some folks like to call it, as personified yesterday in the presidential announcement of the one known as the Satan. We got a lot to talk about. Certainly, I think we can take a moment of prayer, a moment of reflection. We can celebrate ourselves for all that we've done to heal ourselves, our communities, and to work for justice in the past 3 years and really in a lifetime, whatever your track record might be. We all have our own lane. Not everybody is going to have the same assignment. You know what we do. Hour one, we look to the local. We sweep around our own front door, left coast. Hour two, we go national, international, and beyond. And hour three, we do a deep dive with a person or persons of interest. Today, my colleague, the leader of Black Lives Matter Grassroots, which is Black Lives Matter, and the lead organizer for BLMLA, is going to be joining me hour three. Also, we'll spend time paying tribute, of course, to the amazing Tina Turner, an icon for so many reasons, and just her light, that's what I think of. I think of her light and her innovation. But we'll get to that because I'm really excited to have with me in studio a community organizer. I think one of the few that I know of to successfully Gen Z guys to successfully run for city council. He came this close to getting in. He's a teacher. He's a lifelong really resident of Harbor Gateway in the city of Los Angeles, son of immigrants who came to the U.S. from Nigeria. And he is a teacher and an organizer with UTLA. Bryant Odega, good morning.
Good morning, Dominique.
Welcome, welcome.
And thank you for having me here.
I like to start with what's good. I always try to do that. And you got an H on your sweatshirt. If you're watching us on YouTube, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, it's KBLA 1580 on YouTube. We stream every day. And yeah, sorry. It's not that I think I'm so super cool. It's just that I don't have on makeup, so I'm wearing dark glasses. Okay, don't get put too much on it. But H, you got an H. What is that?
Yes. Well, you are super cool, Dominique.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. The H on my sweater represents Harvard, where I'll be going for my massive education in teaching teacher leadership starting this summer.
Woo! Yes, good job, Bryant. So, I mean, I know your students are going to miss you
Yeah.
because you're one of those rare and important Black men who are teaching, and also somebody young that kids can relate to. But congratulations to you. This seems. Did it come out of nowhere? Is this a lifelong dream, or how did that happen?
Yeah, well, so there's two schools that I really wanted to go to. It was my lifelong dream. One is UCLA, another was Harvard. However, there's a and my father, before he was forced to leave the country, he was deported when I was 7. One of the things he told me was to always try to be the first, which was a lot of pressure for someone who was struggling to get through education. And so although I aspired to go to universities, my realities made that difficult. Growing up single parent household, working class, working in high school, 2 jobs throughout college, and just trying to keep it all together. And so it was always part of the plan, and I guess God's plan, since it was able to work out, but definitely took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Okay, you say it was able to work out, but it sounds like all of the work that you've done, I'm imagining, as a community organizer, as an innovative and justice-oriented teacher, as a protester, as an environmentalist, I'm pretty sure that they took notice of you.
Yes, being a teacher.
So humble. It just worked out. So like one day Harvard just said, "Hey, Brian, come on in." Go ahead.
Yeah, my path towards education was definitely inspired by my interest in activism and organizing, because I saw the power mainly in storytelling. Public narratives was something I learned through Sunrise movement. And when I went to college, when I went to UCLA, in their labor studies program, was also where I further studied public narratives, because this was a organizational leadership concept conceptualized by Marshall Gans, who is also a labor rights organizer, long time with United Farm Workers Movement, along with Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. But he also is a Harvard lecturer and was the person who created the model for the grassroots movement that elected Barack Obama to his first election. And so learning from the movement inspired me to become a teacher, because I saw the power in storytelling, saw the power within my own story. And my goal as a liberatory teacher, because there's a difference between being a teacher and a liberatory teacher. I want to be able to put the students first and help them learn and tap into their own power, so they can get the change that they need to transform their own lives, but also the lives of our society.
So, well, congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
And I think you've been on this show many times. You're kind of like a rotating guest, because I always love to hear your perspective, and I welcome more young voices. I'm trying to work this out. First of all, I don't think you've ever shared with me that your dad was deported when you were 7.
Yeah.
How traumatic is that?
Yeah. It was definitely a hard experience overall, but my father was the person who, I still remember, he was the person who took me to my first day of school, and he was a taxi cab driver. And so unlike the other students who either got picked up by regular cars or took the bus or the school bus, I got picked up by a taxi, and I thought it was pretty cool, like how on TV. But after he was forced to leave, my life changed. My mom was in college full time at El Camino, and she had to withdraw in order to work full time as an LVN in order to support me and my younger sister. And I would speak to him through WhatsApp at the time, or like calling cards, but now it's through WhatsApp.
He's still in Nigeria.
Yes, and my goal is after I get my master's, I want to do all I can to bring him back, because it does takes a lot of money and resources to bring folks here, and also to make them citizens. In this country, makes it really hard for folks to do that,
Especially if you're black.
Right.
Blackity black. If you're from what they call ishhole countries in that White House over there. But let me get this in perspective. When, what, we'll do it when we come forward. When George Floyd was murdered and the world saw it, you were how old?
23.
Yeah, so you were, I mean, really just coming out of college.
I'm 22.
22, coming out of college, coming into the world of the working world. I want to talk about how that, how that changed your trajectory, if it did, how it impacts you still today. Welcome our KBLA delegation to get in on this and all of our conversations at 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. I'm Dominique DePrima for KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
The pandemic may be over, but many Angelinos could be at risk of losing the place they call home. It's important to know your rights as a residential renter in the city of LA. Did you know eviction protection still exists for unpaid COVID-19 rental debt that was due before March 31st, 2023? And that you have 5 days to respond to an eviction notice, also known as an unlawful detainer. Learn more about your rental rights at housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home.
Discover credit cards automatically double all the cash back you earn at the end of your first year, which means... Wait, hold up. Question for the audio engineer.
Go ahead.
Did I read that right? Discover automatically doubles all your cash back?
Yeah, that's what the script says.
So if I get a Discover card right now, I can earn twice the cash back.
Apparently. Wait! Unlimited first-year cash back match, only from Discover. See terms and learn more at discover.com/match.
Are your investments going nowhere? Here's a tip that always pays big dividends. Invest in yourself, your talent, your smarts, your skills. Maybe it's time to make that investment and start a career in IT or upskill to boost your current career. At My Computer Career, you can bank on us. We'll help you get the right skills and the right certifications to start or advance your IT career. IT keeps growing, so go with the growth. At My Computer Career, the right training, the right timing, the right career. Invest in you at mycomputercareer.edu. Start now. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DePrima right now.
Bryant Odega is with me. You're with me, and we are talking 800-920-1580. I'm Dominique DePrima. Bryant, you were sharing that you were 22 and basically just getting out of college when the video of George Floyd's brutal murder went around the world. How did that hit you?
Yeah, that was definitely, it had a huge impact on me. I was already kind of distraught by the pandemic. I like to be in person and being able to be in community with folks in person. So going from in-person schooling to, I was in DC during the winter season and coming back to virtual, was just so tough. And then I didn't watch the complete video, but just seeing a bit of the modern day lynching, right, the killing of George Floyd, that I ended up actually not withdrawing, but extending my term to the summer. I just couldn't go to class anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, that moment, to me as, a black person, as a black man in America, kind of made me feel like it definitely, like it had a huge impact on my spirit. Like I just felt like, in many ways, like I was George Floyd. Like any of us could have been George Floyd, our uncles, or even our aunties. We know that women are also impacted by police brutality, and reading about his story, about how he's trying to basically reinvent his life and become a better person, and being a model for folks in his community, and all of that being taken away because a police officer who he pays through his own with his taxes, felt like his life wasn't valuable enough. And, so I was definitely in limbo for a while. I didn't want to go to class, as I mentioned before. I didn't want to do anything. And then I started to see, protests, on social media. And, the first protest I went during that time was in Watts. And I also remember feeling the community, the beauty in that, the joy in that, of course the sadness in that as well, because just like the police violence we saw with George Floyd, we also see that here in LA. And it was just another reminder of how much more work that we need to do in order to put a stop to it. And that feeling later turned to anger, and anger towards the system. I remember being in high school, and Trayvon Martin, being the one that was killed by white supremacy, and all these other black boys, and then later on Sandra Bland, and folks will be like, oh, it's bad apples, that cop maybe didn't have enough training, or whatever. But this is a cyclical thing that's been going on, not just even within my own lifetime, but for generations. The first urban uprising we had in LA was in Watts, I can't remember the year, but
65.
65. You want to get it wrong. In response to, police abuse of black residents in Watts, Watts residents being fed up by, the mistreatment from the city. And so they, rose up, and we're still dealing with some of those same issues. And that, I think, was the spark that kind of made me want to shift on what I want to do with my own life. 'Cause at the time, I thought I wanted to work for, for elected official, in DC, but I just felt more motivated to get activated in LA.
Wow. Interesting. So it really did change the whole trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
And just wild to think. I mean, you're a young person, right? High school was Trayvon Martin.
Yeah.
College was George Floyd. That's a lot. That's a lot. So where do you feel like we are now? I mean, you're right. A lot of us were energized, right, by marching, and felt some solace, at least some comfort that other people also found this terrible and unacceptable, and that other people were willing to put their bodies and their lives, at risk to stop this injustice. Now we've seen a lot of progress, and I think that is important to remember, right? Because now with the anti-CRT, so-called anti-woke movement, it's easy to feel like we did all that for nothing. But actually, millions and millions, actually billions of dollars worldwide moved to organizations that fight anti-blackness and to diversity, equity, inclusion. And lots of black people got opportunities that they would not have gotten in the arts, in education, in finance. So even though many of the corporations have not made good on the pledges, that tiny fraction that did still moves the needle. Nevertheless, we're living through the rise of white supremacy and this sort of medieval book burning, banning energy, which for you as a teacher must be particularly troubling. Yeah. So how do you feel where do you feel we are now, 3 years after the murder of George Floyd? And of course, in a rare case, we saw Derek Chauvin and, found guilty, and actually those other cops, his accomplices as well, with some accountability. So how does all that land for you?
Yeah, I think there has been some progress. There, in addition to resources being put into both financial, but also human resources. Folks joining organizations, including the labor movement, are looking at the organizing that young folks and intergenerationally as well, but young folks leading the charge on organizing Starbucks and Amazon and all these corporations, like the resurgence of the labor movement. Seeing, for a lot of young folks being, I guess, becoming socially aware as well. Social media can definitely be, of course, a negative tool for sowing like chaos and discord and negativity, but also can be very democratic in the sense that even in these states where they're trying to ban, the telling stories of black folks and LGBTQ people, social media, it has a way of introducing young folks to what's going on in the world, and so seeing them getting involved in the movement definitely brings me a lot of hope. And I think it's a huge sign of progress because there is also that sense of urgency. Folks don't want to wait anymore for the next Trayvon Martin to happen, for the next Breonna Taylor to happen, the next mass school shooting, etc. But at the same time, we are also still living in a time of crises, maybe even a worsening crisis, because even despite that incredible, uprising in 2020, we also saw a backlash from, the empire, struck back. Right? We had the President of the United States in the State of the Union address talking about fund the police.
Yeah.
Right? We have states like in Florida and Texas ramping up their efforts to ban the tellings of the stories that would help people understand, white supremacy and why, what's happening right now is happening. The ability to be able to be critical thinkers and socially aware of their own, country. We're seeing uptick in mass shootings, and also, yes, police brutality as well. It was, this year, Keenan Anderson, as I'm, hustling, trying to, apply for college to, get my master's in teaching, and, I got a couple acceptances. Before I got into Harvard, one of the first things that came to mind was, Keenan Anderson, how he was also a teacher, but, it was one interaction with the police that ended his life. And I was just thinking to myself that, wow, even as someone who made it through a system, the education system, that can be so traumatic for people of color, especially for black students, who was able to make it through, go to college, and navigate that institution as well, and then come back and give back to his community, and that still can be taken away, was definitely, it was hard for me as well. And so, and then we also have, cities like Los Angeles that's still giving huge chunks of money to the police, and even as crime is going down, we're still giving more money to police, and, and I think, the situation is still going to remain the same.
And we just approved not me, but the LA City Council just approved the robot dog donation.
Right.
So now we have
robots.
Yeah, now we have AI, right, stalking our communities in a sense, even though there has been a promise that it will only be used by SWAT. Mm-hmm. And again, this is going to be one of the areas where we, the people, have to hold the line.
Yes.
Bryant, of course, yesterday marked 1 year since the terrible massacre of babies at Uvalde, Texas. Speaking of mass shootings, that has to be a topic on your mind too as a teacher.
Yeah.
I know that those mass shootings typically do not happen in our black and brown schools, but Uvalde is mostly Latina.
Right.
And and plus, to me, children getting mowed down by killers is bad anywhere, for anybody, any child.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I can safely say you're not a guy that thinks teachers should be carrying weapons, or that, somebody said this week, maybe we should go back to metal detectors at schools. What do you think would make kids safer?
So I think, definitely, understand, folks who, feel like, especially with where we're at right now and the lack of political courage of our elected officials to enact gun control, the sense of, we need to harden our schools, whether it's the metal detectors or the bulletproof backpacks or the bulletproof clipboards or whiteboards now. That's is a thing. I personally, reject that, because I think by doing so, we're kind of, this Emmanuel, who also went to Harvard, got to education as a teacher in Los Angeles, I resonate a lot with what he said on his podcast, I'll leave the above, rejecting that notion, because it's like we're kind of accepting the premise that, like accepting the status quo, that instead of focusing most of our attention and resources on the root of the issue, which is guns,
right?
We are, tailoring at the edges, and I just don't think, and that won't, solve the issue. It's the guns, not mental health. Mental health folks are oftentimes the biggest victims of violence, not the perpetrators. And so, yes, we need to address mental health as well, but the main issue, the root of the issue, is guns. Even Nigeria, that isn't as developed as the U.S., we don't see the type of mass shootings over there that occurs in the US.
And here's the thing, Bryant. I'm one of those anomalies in being a progressive who is a strong advocate for the Second Amendment. But there's so many things we can do.
Yeah.
And that the public wants.
Yes. It's bipartisan.
To get done, like background checks.
Yes.
So that if it is in fact a mental health situation, we know that before you get a semi-automatic weapon. Or if you have some other issue, like like banning assault rifles. Why, to me, even if you are a big 2A person, those things are very fundamental, and we've seen that they make a difference. And the other thing that I think the left often doesn't talk about is gun safety, right? Because we'll talk about it after news, traffic, and sports. We do have a lot to cover. Bryant Odega is my guest, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
I'm Ree Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Travel for Memorial Day weekend is expected to surpass pre-pandemic levels. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says airlines have delivered considerable improvements in an effort to avoid delays and cancellations.
We're using our tools to press airlines to continue improving customer service and to continue improving performance.
More than 400 million Americans are expected to travel by air over the weekend. President Biden says the late Tina Turner was a once-in-a-lifetime talent that changed American music forever. The queen of rock and roll died peacefully at the age of 83 following a long illness. Former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama called Turner a star whose light will never fade. And that's the latest. I'm Ree Harris on the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Rams franchise has a special connection to the iconic Tina Turner. Turner was part of the pregame entertainment before Super Bowl 34 in Atlanta in 2000. The Rams, who were in St. Louis at the time, played the Tennessee Titans for the NFL championship. Turner did a 4-minute medley that included her legendary hit Proud Mary. Since Turner was a Tennessee native, born in Brownsville, Tennessee, the NFL reached out to Turner and she agreed to do the pregame show. Tina Turner, simply the best. The Clippers are looking for a new general manager. GM Michael Winger is leaving the club to become director of basketball operations for the Washington Wizards. The Miami Heat have another chance to win the Eastern Conference title tonight. The Heat are up 3-1 on Boston. Game 5 in Boston at 5:30 on TNT. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States of America.
The story of Emmett Till and his mother is a story of a family's promise and loss and a nation's reckoning with hate, violence, and abuse of power. It's a story that was seared into our memory and our conscience, the nation's conscience, when Mrs. Till insisted that an open casket for her murdered and maimed 14-year-old son. She said, "Let the people see what I've seen." The reason the world saw what she saw was because of another hero in this story, the black press. Jet Magazine, the Chicago Defender, and other black radio and newspapers were unflinching and brave in making sure America saw what she saw. Ida B. Wells once said, and I quote, "The way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon the wrongs."
Turning the light of truth upon the wrongs. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
Hi, I'm Dominique DePrima. At the Amundsen Theater, now through June 25th, Norm Lewis stars in A Soldier's Play, directed by Kenny Leone. Charles Fuller's Pulitzer Prize-winning drama and Tony Award-winning play, A Soldier's Play, is now on stage. In 1944, on a Louisiana Army base, a black sergeant is murdered, triggering a gripping barrage of questions about sacrifice, service, and identity in America. I'm looking forward to seeing the show myself. Get your tickets at amundsentheater.org. That's amundsentheater.org. Have you faced discrimination in Los Angeles? The City of LA Civil Rights Department can help. They investigate private sector discrimination in LA City, in commerce, education, employment, and housing. If you're facing discrimination, submit a complaint online for free at laisforeveryone.com. That's laisforeveryone.com, or call 213-978-1845.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DePrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Did you know addiction to drugs like meth or cocaine is a disease and not a choice? But getting help is. If you have stimulant use disorder, you, your family, and friends may have a lot of questions, including where to start. Choose Change California can help. Make a change today and find a proven treatment option for you at choosechangeca.org.
I switched to Boost Mobile and got a free Samsung Galaxy A23 5G phone. Want to know the best part?
It was free?
Nope.
The fact that it's on America's largest 5G networks?
Nope. It's the ding.
Oh yeah, love the ding.
Right? It's all about the ding. It's the dingarooski, the dingarone, the ring-a-ding-ding.
Unleash your power to save with Boost. Get a free Samsung Galaxy A23 5G phone when you switch. Boost Mobile. Unleash your power.
And the ding.
Limited time offer. New customers only. Available on select networks. 5G not available everywhere. One device per line. Tax excluded. Additional restrictions apply. See your local Boost Mobile store for details.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
I'm Dominique DePrima here with Bryant Odega, who is a teacher and an organizer with UTLA. Was talking about his journey, but we're talking about all things left coast, and you're welcome to bring up something that is of interest to you. You know, I love me some Beyonce. She's on tour. She's a queen. Of course, Jay-Z's one of the greatest of all times in the rap game, and they just bought a Malibu home for $200 million. $200 million. I'm not mad at them. I get it. It's their money. They can do what they want with it. It's the most ever paid for a home in California. You know, on the one hand, you're like, wow, black wealth, generational wealth, you know, blue ivy, and I'm going to be like
eating good. Yeah,
eating good for generations. On the other hand, I think about the state of our city in terms of from $200 million home to tent.
Right.
And of course, it's not fair to pick on Jay-Z and Beyonce because we got a lot of billionaires and gazillionaires in LA. That's part of the challenge is that and I remember when I first came here and I didn't have a job yet, you see the Rolls Royces rolling by, you know, and it's challenging. What did you think when you saw that? Wow, they call it a minimalist masterpiece, a modern concoction of concrete and glass, according to the LA Times.
Yeah, well, so I do love Beyonce, and Jay-Z is one of my favorite rappers, and like that story kind of made me think of like just the current state of black homeownership in America. One of the things I wanted to research when I was in college was black homeownership actually, and you know what I found, what was so alarming to me was, you know, since I believe 1968 when President Johnson enacted the bill that abolished racial discrimination practices in housing, black homeownership rates have largely remained the same. A huge part of that, of course, is the '08 crisis, and the roots under that was the predatory, you know, lending practices that targeted black folks.
Right, which is why we lost more real estate than anybody in the
Right.
Bush crash of 2008.
And we're still trying to recover.
Yeah.
So maybe think of Dallas, maybe think of, renters. I'm a renter myself in the city of Los Angeles, which is a majority renter, and the continuous, skyrocketing rent prices and the stagnant wages, and that is contributing to, folks being pushed out into the streets if they, when they have nowhere else to go. And so we definitely have a lot more work that we need to do in order to address the housing crisis. It is also a racial justice issue, and so we need to be targeting, and putting resources to communities that have been historically disenfranchised from housing.
I mean, and particularly black people, because in LA there were actually laws.
Redlining.
Yeah, not just redlining. There were those housing covenants.
Right.
My neighbor, may she rest in peace, told me, and she was, I think, 90 at the time, that she passed for white to buy her house. She was very, very, very fair, and then moved in all her chocolate husband and all of her family members. And there was a time when we couldn't even buy in parts of what we consider South LA because it was in the contracts. So that's why I feel, I'm happy for them. But then you think, well, there's a lot. We can do a lot if we have that much wealth in our city. And the mayors of big cities are pushing for government investment. They're pushing Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden to invest, because that's where most of the unhoused people are in these big cities.
Yes.
There's something called the California Big City Mayors, which is a coalition of mayors from the 13 cities that have the most people in them. And they sent a letter to Gavin Newsom this month saying, look, I know that the belts are tightening and the budget is not in good shape, but you can't back off of funding for the houseless. And we'll see how that goes, because, they're saying, yes, the Gavin Newsom's administration is saying, yes, we'll do this. But meanwhile, these austerity measures are kicking in. And as you point out, they don't seem to be impacting police budgets, which continue to rise.
Right. Yeah. We are doing a lot of catching up. And if we don't put the resources at the scale of the crisis to address homelessness and housing injustice, then we're going to be behind even further, because housing costs are still going up, living costs are still going up, and people's living expense, people's standards of living is staying the same. And so the police, I believe this latest budget, again, we're putting like a quarter of our city budget to policing, when we need to be addressing the root causes, of crime and public safety and the lack of public safety. And part of that public safety issue is having shelter. If folks don't have a home to live in, if folks don't have, a job or have any economic opportunities, folks are going to do whatever it takes to get by, or to be put in a situation where they do things that they normally probably wouldn't do if they had, the resources. And that's not, of course, a condoning of, crime, but we have to be real and recognize that these are the outcomes of conditions, outcomes of systems, and policing. And the more we put more and more into policing, and then also policing said people who are, in the most, need, the more this crisis is going to continue. So we need to reallocate a lot of these fundings into housing, but also into youth programs. Before working as a substitute teacher, I was also a youth development professional with the Boys and Girls Club, running these youth programs, and I saw the impact kids had when they're able to play and have fun and enjoy
do
themselves.
what kids are supposed to be doing.
Right.
Real talk. Well, I know you saw this story about this teenager who climbing up the 6th Street Bridge, trying to make a video for social media. 17-year-old this weekend, and then he fell off and died. And I mean, it's a freak accident, but it goes back to your point about kids having things to do in their communities that aren't the 6th Street Bridge. And also to your point about social media and how we get caught up in clout chasing.
Yeah. Yeah, I personally try to take, especially with the new ownership of Twitter.
Do not get me started.
I try to take even longer breaks now from Twitter because, when I open Twitter, it's like chaos. So much is going on. So much negativity, so much harmful stuff, and it could be, triggering and traumatizing and depressing as well. There are studies out there that link, social media to, mental health and to anxiety. And I think it's not just the chaos that's on social media, but also how addictive it can be.
How do you help your students with that? I mean, or do you? Because I feel like as a mom, the other side of the coin is that we're constantly being shamed for letting our kids use social media, mostly by other parents, but sometimes by teachers. And then at the same time, I feel like there's this hysteria. We feel that our kids can sit in front of a computer screen 23 hours a day if they're doing schoolwork.
Right.
But we don't want them to use it for recreation. So I feel like there has to be a balance, like not this hysteria that if my child is on Instagram, it's the end of the world, but at the same time, somehow helping them manage and navigate it. So do you do that at all, or just kind of leave them to their own devices, literal devices?
So a bit of both. So I do use some social media like Kahoot, for games just to take, like a brain break and to, find more engaging and exciting ways for students to practice what they've learned and get prizes. But I also, what I learned from the Boys and Girls Club is really the importance of like social emotional learning. And I do try to incorporate that into the classroom, taking breaks to talk about, ourselves, identities, what we care about, from issues, from things as light as like your favorite ice cream or what you saw on TV to discussions about what's going on in the world. About, I talked to students last year when the Uvalde massacre happened in Texas, and I talked to students about that. And I've also done other things like taking students out of the classroom. We're having a restorative justice circle, get some fresh air and some vitamin D from the sun, but also, being in community. And so what I want to do when I go to grad school is practice more of that so I can take, learning to a higher level.
So you're going to continue to teach?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, when we come forward, I want to see what these books are because you take teaching as another way of changing the world, really, of social justice. I want to see what you got going there and how that looks when we come forward. And we are taking your phone calls, by the way, 800-920-1580. We are amplifying Black and progressive voices around the clock. We are KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family was founded to help address domestic violence and sexual assault in the Asian and the Pacific Islander communities. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family's mission is to build healthy and safe communities by addressing the root causes and consequences of family violence and violence against women. They are committed to meeting the specific cultural and language needs of the Asian and Pacific Islander women and their families. CPAF's vision is of an Asian and Pacific Islander community that embraces healthy relationships and works in partnership with other communities to eradicate all forms of violence. To access services, volunteer, or for more info, visit nurturingchange.org. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe everyone deserves to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Something new is happening in California's public schools.
They're called community schools.
One of the foundations of community schools is shared decision making,
Where parents and families, students and educators make decisions as one.
Community schools lift the voices of folks that have traditionally been underserved.
Many of our classes are designed around our own students' cultures, their background, their personal experiences.
We bring culturally relevant curriculum to the classroom based on what their specific needs are.
Improving student achievement and innovative classes like cybersecurity and gardening.
And we assist families with their needs.
Some schools have parent education programs, cooking and nutrition classes.
Everything from medical or dental services to immigration law services.
This is a one-stop shop that serves the needs of not just the students, but their families as well.
They're California's community schools, reimagining public education. Paid for by the California Teachers Association.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio, KBLA Talk 1580.
So Bryant Odega is a Gen Z teacher, but you're a teacher's teacher. Like you take your teaching as more than just a job or a profession. It's really an art and a calling for you. So what are those books that you got that you brought in today?
Yes, as when you mentioned that, it makes me think of Dr. Cornel West, who talks about philosophy as a vocation, not just something he does, but something that he feels called to do. And that's how I feel towards teaching. And part of my goal is learning how to be a better teacher, and in that sense, also learning how to be a better human. And so as a teacher, as a Black educator, I see myself as part of a movement. And I stand on the shoulders of teachers who came before me, and so I'm trying to learn about their contributions they've made.
I gotta say, as a mama, I sure wish more teachers thought like that. Because really, honestly, a good teacher makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And bad teachers also make all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And honestly, I have met many teachers in my work as a mother who are really like jailers. It's like to me, Bryant, this is the mentality of how many seconds it takes you to go to the bathroom, or, whether or not you're 2 minutes late for class, or you perceive you as defiant or whatever, is more important than what happens to your life. I was so touched by the fact that you're rushing back from, college to make sure you can be there to see the first class of students that you've spent 4 years with graduate from high school. And then you're planning to do it again next year so you can see the ones that haven't graduated. Anyway, I wish there were more folks that looked at teaching the way you do. So talk to me about, you're saying it is part of the movement.
Yes.
And I think that's right. So how would you describe your philosophy?
Yeah, so my
teaching?
philosophy is
Your
influenced
pedagogy.
Yes, my philosophy, my pedagogy is influenced by a lot of what I'm reading right now. There's a book called Fugitive Pedagogy, Carter G. Woodson and the Art of Black Teaching by Harvard professor Jarvis Givens, who's actually originally from Compton and went to the same high school that I went to at King Drew in Willowbrook Watts area. So go Golden Eagles. And Professor Givens, in fugitive pedagogy, he describes it as recognizing the constraints that Black educators undergo through, but also the ways in which they push back. And so Carter G. Woodson is the central of the story, but he also looks at other teachers. Carter G. Woodson being basically the father of Black History Month, in my opinion, also of other people, the progenitor of Black Studies. And one of his most notable books is The Miseducation of the Negro. And in Givens' book, he shares an example of a teacher during Jim Crow era who is reading from her lap from this book secretly. But when the white supremacist principal or administrator comes in, she instantly puts on basically a performance, teaching to the standards set by by the white folks who who are on the board. And, in terms of fugitive pedagogy, what that shows us, what she's doing in that sense is, one, teaching. So even despite the constraints that she's in, we're supposed to teach a certain way. The institution, even today, the status quo of teaching, kind of pointed to what you mentioned before. In many ways, kind of reenacts, systems of social control rather than social liberation. And so she is still willing to teach, to liberate, to cultivate the minds of her students, while also, but by kind of being, I guess, fugitive or secretive with the way she's acting in the presence of those in power. She's also demonstrating to students, what resistance looks like, and that is also within itself very instructional for students to learn when they're trying to navigate white supremacy when they're adults, or even as young folks as well. And so I'm reading about that just to, for further inspiration and, and for example.
Okay, save the example. I want to get your, whatever you want to leave us with, your inspiration when we come forward.
Absolutely.
On KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action is the youth component of the impactful CBO, known as the Community Coalition. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action has chapters at almost every South LA high school. Say Yeah, as they are popularly known, is located at 80th and Vermont, but serves young people all over South LA. Under the COCO umbrella, they train youth organizers, help underserved scholars prepare for college, and work with students to help them gain admission to top universities. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action fosters teen activism, where young people have led campaigns moving tens of millions of dollars to South LA schools and forcing officials to make AP classes available to students in under-resourced institutions. SCES scholars have taken part in the March on Washington, been published in major news outlets, and been elected to city council. Long before she was mayor, Karen Bass started the program when she founded the Community Coalition. To donate, volunteer, or enroll a student in South Central Youth Empowered Through Action, please visit cocsouthla.org. cocsouthla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at nfamilyfire.org. That's nfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by N Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
If your Medi-Cal is ending, Cover California is here to help. Cover California is a service from the state that helps you get affordable health insurance. In many cases, at no cost to you, just like with Medi-Cal. We have quality health plans, and we'll help you every step of the way to get the one that works for you and your family. So, if you're no longer eligible for Medi-Cal, check out Cover California. We'll keep you covered. Learn more at coveredca.com.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
Bryant Odega is with me. He's a teacher and soon-to-be Harvard scholar, and just sharing your approach to education, your philosophy, what inspires you, how education equals activism. Mm-hmm. And so you were going to share your inspiration.
Yes, another huge inspiration for me is Bell Hooks. And in her book, Teaching to Transgress, she talks about celebrating teaching that enables transgression, that is moving against and beyond boundaries. And she says it's that movement which makes education the practice of freedom. And that's how I see myself as an educator, as a person. I think teaching, if used well, can also be a means of organizing, as well, organizing young folks to tap into their own power, tap into their own strength, their own resources that oftentimes our society likes to tell us that we are lacking of. And so helping them recognize that, and then using that power to get the change that they want in their own lives, but also the lives of society. And I just want to encourage people to tap into their own power, to share their stories, and listen to the stories of other people, but to also not to be in these pandemics of crises, to not feel despair and constraints, but to find hope. And for me, finding hope is in community. And so for folks, I highly encourage folks to join the local labor union or support the local labor union to get involved in community organizations that are doing the work, because together, we can change a lot. And that's what brings me a lot of hope, Dominique.
Well, I'm again, congratulations on your, postgraduate studies at Harvard University. I know you're going to be busy because you're in an accelerated, intense program. But I'm assuming that once you complete that program, we'll hear from you again, even if it's by phone, that you'll be back on First Things First, back on KBLA.
Yeah, I'll appreciate that. And thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be in community with you, Dominique, and with Miles, and with also, listeners. And it's just been a huge blessing and a privilege. Thank you.
And, well, thank you. And also, I thank you for introducing us to other young folks that are activists, because I'm really committed to, whenever I have the ability, to amplifying younger folks too, and many times in talk spaces and political conversations, your generation, Generation Z, and even Generation Y is not necessarily included. So appreciate you helping us do that, Bryant Odega. We shall follow you on Twitter and all the things, and watch you do your thing, and with pride and joy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Dominique.
It's a great time to call me. In fact, I demand. No, I'm just playing. Call me if you want to. 800-920-1580. I'm Dominique DePrima for KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Ree Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Travel for Memorial Day weekend is expected to surpass pre-pandemic levels. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says airlines have delivered considerable improvements in an effort to avoid delays and cancellations.
We're using our tools to press airlines to continue improving customer service and to continue improving performance.
More than 400 million Americans are expected to travel by air over the weekend. President Biden says the late Tina Turner was a once-in-a-lifetime talent that changed American music forever. The queen of rock and roll died peacefully at the age of 83 following a long illness. Former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama called Turner a star whose light will never fade. And that's the latest. I'm Ree Harris on the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Finding a great hire can be a challenge. That's why there's Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 toward your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Rams franchise has a special connection to the iconic Tina Turner. Turner was part of the pregame entertainment before Super Bowl 34 in Atlanta in 2000. The Rams, who were in St. Louis at the time, played the Tennessee Titans for the NFL championship. Turner did a 4-minute medley that included her legendary hit Proud Mary. Since Turner was a Tennessee native, born in Brownsville, Tennessee, the NFL reached out to Turner and she agreed to do the pregame show. Tina Turner, simply the best. The Clippers are looking for a new general manager. GM Michael Winger is leaving the club to become director of basketball operations for the Washington Wizards. The Miami Heat have another chance to win the Eastern Conference title tonight. The Heat are up 3-1 on Boston. Game 5 in Boston at 5:30 on TNT. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Feel like KBLA Talk 1580 is pleased to partner with the Empowerment Congress, the Gathering Spot, the Institute for Nonviolence, and Days of Dialogue for a Juneteenth program called State of the Freed to educate fellow citizens about the significance of the holiday and efforts around reparations for descendants of slaves living in California. Program participants include California Reparations Task Force member Assemblyman Reginald Jones Sawyer and State Senator Steve Bradford, along with KBLA's own Dominique DePrima, Ariva Martin, Tavis Smiley, and many more. It all all happens Saturday, June 10th, and you could be selected to attend this special invitation-only Juneteenth event along with Dominique, Ariba, and Tavis. All you have to do is go to the KBLA 1580 website, click on the Juneteenth State of the Freed icon on the homepage, and register to win entrance into this empowering affair. Or you can watch the live stream of this special Juneteenth event by going to www.empowermentcongress.org/Juneteenth. But head to the KBLA 1580 website right now for your chance to join us live on site Saturday, June 10th for the State of the Freed. This is a Juneteenth community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
I feel like freedom. Please, man, take breathe. Get up on the sidewalk, please. One side,
Oh my God. That's somebody's brother, son, uncle. That was a human life. They can take all that Ku Klux Klan stuff on because it's over. Slavery's over. We're not accepting it no more. It's done.
Say his name.
Say his name.
George Floyd.
George Floyd.
Say his name.
Say his name.
George Floyd.
George Floyd.
We're here to be a community, but we can't when we're still being murdered by the hands of the same people who's supposed to be protecting our community.
Say his name. Say his name. Say his name.
Standing up for Black lives on the Angelversary of George Floyd Jr. With all of us on KBLA Talk 1580.